very much for the very kind introduction. My piece is in 3 bits. First, show and tell, like you have in school. This is a poster, which most of you might be able to see, of seashells. How many seashells would you identify on your local coast? That's twice the number the average Irish would, even though we're very rich in seashells. We did a little experiment with 12-year-olds in school. We showed them a range of seashells which were on their local shore. They were able to identify 2. We also showed them a range of car models, and they were able to identify 11. Ocean literacy has quite far to come. If you then preach to them and say, you really ought to know more about your seashells, they ask you why. Because why should they? But if they go out on field work and they start seeing how these things live, they start doing role play about being a limpet and how hard it is to be a limpet. I mean, you have no more limpets in Germany. I don't know about Belgium, the Netherlands. They're gone. Background pollution with oil and many other causes, including loving daddies coming down to the seashore and hacking away at the limpets to show them to their children. A local cause why around most bathing waters we have no limpets. So we're thinking, how do we get them to be interested? So we asked us to join us on different field trips or with school groups, and we said, whenever you have a good photo of a seashell, would you please send it to us? This was in the Dublin area. And within about 6 weeks, we had quite a lot of good photos. And we said, we now are going to divide them arbitrarily into the snails and to the bivalves, and we think there might be a few more, but this, as an interim, is our interim poster created by you. So those who already sent something were now interested. And they would either download them from our website or get them locally because the city council agreed to print off some drafts. We got more. We got the first bed of the bivalves, whose name has just escaped me, which lives in clay, the piddock. It's a particular type of piddock which lives in clay. Suddenly people were finding where they actually live. They were beginning to wonder about the razor shell boats, which were suction dredging out. They were beginning to think about what climate change is doing, as a heat wave created a lot of Icelandic cyprias alive, dying on the shore. Within, and this has only been going on for the last 2 years, we are getting an upsurge of interest and calls about mollusks. And that is purely from it's not part of a project. We don't have money for it. It is just a way of getting interest. Now the local authority prints this. It has 21 species on each side and gives it out to local schools and interested people. It's also the only one, so tourists also use it. And then they simply tick off what they have found. And then we have some games where we get the feedback, and that tells us what kind of species are in a particular area. It's just little beginnings, and I think it's the cumulative effect of huge amount of work which gets us to understand the oceans better. Of course, we have some other things like, does anyone know this one? Sorry, it's a very worn one. 2,000 years ago now, if I'd been standing here, the saliva would be running because a lot of our ancestors used to eat it, and you find it in shell mittens. The European oyster, the iconic species for us. Very few countries have it. We recently had German scientists over who came to look at some of those in Ireland to try and restore the native oyster beds, because I think the water and sediment areas in some areas are good enough to do this, and the legislation to protect those sites. Accidentally, one group of coastwatchers found oysters in Dublin Bay in an old oyster bed just now during our Coastwatch survey. What do you do with that sort of citizen science? Do you put it up on the web? No, but you won't, because somebody will come and eat it, even though it's a closed area and they'll probably get all sorts of diseases. So what do you do with data? You entice, and then you have to try and manage it. Perhaps this fear that people would take and destroy is quite strong in us scientists, and we use that sometimes as an excuse and sometimes really for not giving away the place where the bee orchid is, or the Moor's horsetail. But we tried to do it the other way around and said, if you have enough local people who will protect if they know, then perhaps it is better that locals know. So, with climate change, there's one rare plant in Ireland, the perennials, well, there are lots, but this particular one is perennial salicornia. You find it in the Mediterranean, you find it in France, and there's just one little area in Ireland where it used to occur, where the Normans landed. Maybe they took it. And then the scientists went back to the same places where they had been, and it was gone. And they said, "Ah, Jesus, it's gone." And then I was walking across a salt marsh, and I thought I saw that plant, but I'm a zoologist, so I wasn't 100% sure. So I photographed it and took a little piece off, brought it to the botany department in my university, and they said, yeah, it's perennial salicornia. And what had happened was this plant had moved from the area it used to inhabit, literally on its elbows, up into the salt marsh. And it was still there, but it had changed its habitat. Well, if it had happened in a little clump on my father's salt marsh, my father's a farmer, maybe it had happened elsewhere. So I asked the priest at Mass, could you please show a picture of it and ask people to look out for it? And because farmers already know where things live, the sheep won't always be distributed equally over the field. Depending on the wind and the rain, they'll be in one area. So you give the conditions where you think it is likely to be. And lo and behold, not only did we find 4 of the old locations, we found 4 more, all in around that same bay, Natura 2000 site, but now it was owned by local people. They had found it. So we made a poster out of it, we made pictures out of it. We had buns and cake in the local community hall from both sides of the bay, who don't normally talk to each other, therefore we had to have it twice. And then the Waterford Glass, before they died as a lovely crystal company, also gave everyone a little crystal figure to symbolize this is fragile, this is special. And they have that in their mantelpieces. And every one of those sites, except for one which is now actually lost because the salt marsh has also been washed over, is being protected by the locals. It's not being eaten by any sheep or anything else. It's, in a way, lost space, and yet it's protected. So in communication, I think it's really important to bear in mind why are we doing something and how to bring people with us. Then to the other end of the scale, where it's totally in your own mind why you want to do it. You know these nice Merck test kits for nitrates? I'm sure loads of you have used them. And we get them in the lab, and they come in bunches of 100. So it's quite expensive. However, you can get them to package them individually. Sorry about the packaging, but that means it's accessible at a relatively low price to local people. So we say, well, what is your Belgian water just here from the tap? What is it like? You open one of these, and you tear it, and you see, what's the water quality like? And what do you think it is? Dip it in, dip it out, wait a minute, so everybody can do it. Then you check, and after 1 minute, this will take a little bit too long for me because I want to get through this. You then hold it like that, and you get a color change if the nitrates, the available nitrates, which haven't been munched up by plankton, if they are above detection. Detection level is your background level in water, and in this case it came up to 25 milligram per liter, which is actually not good. But it is also not illegal, and it's not awful. And really what it shows us is that across Europe and across my own country, we have raised nitrate levels. And those raised nitrate levels are going into our seas. And they're causing the nutrient enrichment and the nice things we can map with plankton blooms. Now, in Coastwatch, we are using those to check the nitrates going into the sea from all the small inflows, and then mapping that. I'll just go to my, how do I do my PowerPoint? I need somebody who's technical, because I don't see anything I can do my PowerPoint with, unless I'm supposed to use my computer. Perfect. Sorry, I didn't see that. No. Okay, so I just go quickly. So, for citizen science, we need data. We all know it's a big ocean. The rim is changing. There are too few scientists. And we have new technology which helps us engage people. People are using the coast, so they're there anyway, so it's quite good. People who could come to the coast can also be enticed to go to the coast and give lots of data, crowdsourcing. And there are quite a lot of projects on this crowdsourcing, and they tend to appear, crowdsource, disappear. Something else comes in, crowdsource. So that is, in a way, the most basic form of citizen science, which citizens quite often get tired of. Now, did I also see citizen science in another way? We all need more data and more information. Citizen does too. Again, we have the big ocean, the changing rim. Data can be inaccessible, which was already talked about by a few other presenters before me. Also, there are more and more people. We are going to have more and more impact if we don't watch it. You know, when you say, leave only your little footprint behind. Well, too many footprints can mangle the place. We can love the place to death by cleaning and beach cleaning without knowing how that takes the marram grass away and the other drift material which could form the new dune. We are given drivers. The Commission has the blue growth strategy. But unless we have the safeguards in place and really apply them, it can be high risk. And people, it's unusual for people to act because they want to be harmful, but accidental damage is quite common. So, the 3 H's we have is use your head, your heart, and your hand. If you only use your head, it's very bad for the other 2. Ideally, we would like to have people who know, understand, experiment, discover. In my opinion, it doesn't happen unless they are on the shore. They have discovered, they feel. We have so many senses. We use our vision sense an awful lot, but our other senses. How many of you have felt the skin of a dogfish? Ah, great. You see, so many people haven't. And then this other thing about history. Traditionally, what did we do? How did we use this? Not that everything traditional was good, but there's a good chance, if it lasted a long time, that it might have been good, and that there are elements of it. And there's a huge amount of work being done with the UN at the moment on traditional uses of the oceans and incorporating that and knowledge. And then the most important, I think, is that we empower people to stand up for it, this it which they now know about and feel about. How to do that? And we have, which most of you will probably also know, the Aarhus Convention for access to information, public participation, and access to justice. The most beautiful, idealistic, and workable piece of legislation, where the first two parts of it are integrated into EU law. Coastwatch survey, just a very quick run through. This is one of the projects that's been going on for a long time. It was designed in Ireland by a journalist friend of mine and myself in 1987. And it was simply some questions about the seashore, which were printed on one page of a national newspaper. And to our surprise, we got loads of feedback. And somebody in the European Commission read it and contacted me and said, this could be good internationally. And it grew from there. It's a basic audit of the coast, which you do all in the same fashion at the same time. And then nationally, you might have some adaptations for extra questions. What we're trying to do is give training and education for local interests and communities, gather baseline data about the coast, raise awareness, give information back in draft forms that people can interact, and encourage participation in result report and follow-up action. Coastwatch, the red countries are the countries which have done Coastwatch, and at one stage we were the largest network, as far as I know, in the world, with over 10,000 survey sites per annum from autumn surveys. That was for 5 years running. And then I was beginning to get a bit fed up with loads and loads of litter data. Why did we have to throw out the biodiversity data, particularly in Western Europe, but not in the East? Our Russian, our Ukrainian, our Bulgarian partners had pretty usable biodiversity data. And I saw that they did an awful lot of field training. They would go out and the people would know it. The kindergartens near the coast would go out. So there was a, when you we build in verification and cross-references, their data came out way higher. So we had to change something. Just run quickly through it, why it's quite good statistically. We divide the coast up into 500-meter survey units along the high water mark. And nowadays, in the past, it was all done manually, but nowadays, over the last 5 years, it's done online. You can click on a survey unit, up comes, or you click on the map, zoom in, and then up come the survey units, these blue and white pieces, and then when you click on one, it goes red, and the code comes up. And then you insert that code into this is it a bit more close up, and then and their harbor areas as well, and then you put that into the first line in question A1 of your questionnaire. Then you go out, you check for low tide, and then you go out around low tide in the countries which have a low tide, and you go out and you do the survey, and you do the nitrates as well. Some of the information is factual information. What did you see? And in the end, it is a looking back. What did you really like about this bit of coast? And some fascinating answers in that. And also, what do you see are the threats to this shore? So we have a combination of hard and soft data. When you're going out to do training, and particularly for the biodiversity questions, we don't just say, this is a such and such, try and memorize it. We try, and I'm sure as most of you who are doing field work do, you're trying to get the whole ecosystem across, how everything moves. Why don't I see a sandhopper marching around on the shore? Well, if you were a sandhopper, would you be doing that? Of course you wouldn't. So you'd be hiding until the evening, and then you'd come out, and you convert seaweed, vegetable matter, into animal matter, and then the birds can come and eat it. So if all the seaweeds are taken away by the beach cleaning machines, then there are no sandhoppers, and the birds can't eat there either. And if we feed them with polystyrene, the sandhoppers will become infertile, and there'll still be no sandhoppers, even if you had seaweed. Does anyone have this in their country? Well, we have lots of jellyfish. That's common. What about these guys at the top on the right-hand side? Subilaria reefs, most amazing things. When we started the survey, nobody knew what they were. They were just a hobby horse of mine. Now, we have about 3 times as many sites as are officially known from scientific research, because local people are now fascinated by it. Artists and photographers want to photograph it. And there's the video which I'll show in the end it's even teenagers who think they're amazing. Here is a native oyster found in one of the good native oyster beds. Sorry, I don't know. And then we have the downside. We have the marine litter with so many citizen science projects already on that. I will skip over that quite quickly, except to say that microlitter wasn't on our radar. We looked at macrolitter. We map it in GIS mapping for the last 5 years with a fantastic Spanish coordinator, and we can see high density, the red and then the orange, of the litter counts generally around urban areas, and then if you zoom in, you have them in particular areas where you can model, where in theory you could model exactly where the litter hotspots are, and then our litter cleanup activities should ideally be focused on those to remove as much material as possible. We also have things like seagrass, zostera species, and again, finding more than were officially known. So this is the innovation I just talked about. One of the other things then is, as a topic becomes known, like climate change or microbeads, people start asking about it. And you say, no, actually microbeads we won't be able to do in the survey because you can't see them in a normal survey. But one up on that, if you're looking at the UN definition of microlitter, see the tiny little bits, we can do something about those. Sorry. It's stuck on microlitter. There we go. So what we're saying to people is we're using the definition of 0.5 millimeter for round objects and up to 5 millimeter for filaments. And then, because people don't carry measurement tapes with them, say take a 20-cent coin. If it fits on the bottom of the 2, or if it fits across, then that's your measurement. We divided this, and we have a pilot microlitter, so it's called litter there, app for people to record when they find microlitter on the shore, the location, the time they sent the picture in. We had quite a negative reaction to that, and I wonder why you think that might have been. The main reason was that people didn't want to have on the web some bad information about their area. But when we added another photo, which said, give us something beautiful or interesting about your coast, we overcame that. Because now there wasn't just bad information, there was beautiful information. And the bad one was the one they were now angry about and were going to do something about. Seaweed is another big thing, which is perhaps the biggest threat I see with blue ghosts, because there's so many wonderful things which can be done with seaweed that large licenses are now being granted for clear felling our underwater forests, like the kelp forests. And we really need to sit up very, very quickly and do citizen awareness raising of this and looking at potential of aquaculture to get our seaweed requirements. I'll now give you an example of follow-up. So what we do is we do the Coastwatch survey, we give the information back, and then we're encouraging people to do something about it. I'll just give you 2 quick ones. One is tires. I don't know if you have this, but people are very inventive, and tires are used in Ireland illegally to put on the shore to catch the peeler crabs. And I don't know if that's an international phenomenon, but we're getting more of it. The crab, when it sheds its carapace, wants to be somewhere sheltered, dark, and warm. The tire is the perfect place. You can actually clean out an area if you put enough tires in, because they don't hide under the rocks anymore they go to the tires. And it's very easy to clean out the tires. So we were trying to get tires moved, and last year we had a zero effect. Nobody knows who's responsible, nobody owns the tires, and each authority asks another authority to do something about it. This time it was slightly different. So the community in Cope, the tires were all over the place, down there in the intertidal, over 100 tires, and more had been thrown over the wall to roll them into the midshore to become pillar crabs. So the locals put them all up, carried as many as they could up and put them on the wall for the local authority to collect them and take them out of the system. When they came down next day, the tires were all landing on the shore again because the guys who wanted the pillar crabs wanted them. However, the whole exercise was repeated, and this time around the locals stayed with it until the van came and collected the tires. The feedback from that locality was they felt that there was certain legitimacy. They weren't Joe Murphy, who was doing something potentially against his neighbor, who was trying to get the pillar crabs. They were now Coastwatchers. They were aware of this. They hadn't even noticed some of the tires before. There was a community response. And then for the Coastwatch survey, they found it easy to complete and so on. But the important thing is there is the feedback. Seagrasses is another area where we got very poor results. We asked people to say where there's seagrass, but because the word seagrass, even if you put the Latin word, is used often for seaweeds, for green seaweeds, we keep on getting results for seaweeds when we want seagrass. So we wanted people to become more aware of that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm really sorry, and to me it sounds really loud. Okay, apologies. So in the Water Framework Directive and in the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, seagrass, Zostra marina, and Zostra nolti are species which are monitored. It would be very important for decisions even like aquaculture, where you site your aquaculture trestles, to know where these are. So we decided to do first of all, to get people more aware how important it is, how fragile it is, and then how valuable it is. And then we asked the EPA in Ireland to do a training course to show how they monitor the grass, so that we could monitor it quite in a similar fashion once you find a site. So they showed the quadrats, we then changed it to hula hoops, and we did a control study one beside the other, and hula hoops work fine, and they're much cheaper. Then you have this very, very special thing about seagrass is gone. There used to be huge beds. The source of the problem, the local dump, is closed. And 2 years later, we had a return of Zostra nolti, which was incredibly lucky. So people were really, really happy about that. However, 2 years later, they started having black blades and dying. And that is another issue which is really, really difficult to deal with. This idea of, oh, it isn't okay. Seaweed ecosystems, as I already said, are seriously under threat. We are doing quite a bit of work on that now. This is climate change, but we are finding it also by our actions. There are lots of ecosystem services. There's a massive growth in demand for seaweed. We have taken a particular license, which was granted, and we got the coordinates, mapped it, and then translated it into Coastwatch surveys and got people to try and survey that area. Blue growth, we are saying nibble, don't grab. Puffins are iconic. What about other species? Dion's decon. Dion's video. Does it just come on, or do I have to do something magic? This is a teenager who did a one-week internship
area of Sabellaria alveolata reef occurs intertidally in Duncannon Bay. This biogenic reef forms draping structures over exposed bedrock and where suitable substrate is available, forms upstanding features with a prominent three-dimensional aspect.
Nor sweenimwyd scerica, darlin gohundul an vorsker vacanach bratana, no oitana a vodacane ella. Ac an seo, iloch gorman, tá scerica féin a gwyn, ní dainta os correlacht, ac dainta os gan. Togta ag na creature biog Sabellaria alveolata, o nís cochinta a hugter an paistville togach. Sa survey galvila sa shedeg, hog me pictori agus cuirme na sunri own survey an sieve iderlín.
These reefs can be up to 30 or even 50 centimeters thick and take the form of hummocks, sheets, or more massive formations. Reefs are mainly found on the bottom third of the shore, but may reach mean high water of neap tides and extend into the shallow subtidal in places. They do not seem to penetrate far into low salinity areas. Reefs form on a variety of hard substrata, from pebbles to bedrock, in areas with a good supply of suspended sand grains from which the animals form their tubes, and include areas of sediment when an attachment has been established.
Didn't get funding from Forge Island. So I think this is a longer version actually.
They construct their tubes by capturing sand particles with their tentacles, then hair-like cilia to transport them to the feeding organ, which cements them to their tube using mucus. In Kilfarracy, on the other side of the Waterford estuary, local expert Paddy Houlihan assisted with today's survey by the seashore. He has great knowledge of the terrain fauna and flora. Paddy pointed out an area of concern, a new green algae which has recently established itself on the honeycomb reef and appears to be detrimental to the honeycomb worm. However, although it does appear to be damaged, further investigation to ascertain if the algae is damaging the reef will need to be undertaken.
So just to say that this is on YouTube now for just a few days, and we've already had inquiries from 5 other students. He's a school student, that they want to do young scientists projects to find out more. So one thing leads to another thing, and the nitrates are very useful. Thank you very much.